Good evening. I'm Dr. Fred Rouse, the Real Money Doctor, and it's currently 7 o'clock on Wednesday, August 5th. And I wanted to touch base on today's daily events that affect the way you get, protect, and enjoy your money, your life, and your retirement. Now, the question for today, and it's an important one, can you still retire? And I'll get to that in just a few minutes. Right now, we start the day as we do every other day since we got started in March with the COVID cases, because again, the COVID situation worldwide is the biggest mover of things at this point in time, unless you're in Beirut and you got caught in that explosion. But other than that, in the US, it's the driving factor from everything at this point in time. It's driving the economy, it's driving the election, it's driving everything. Right now, there are 4,804,000 cases right now. That's up 52,000, almost 53,000 actually, from yesterday when we spoke. The total number of cases that have recovered is basically 30%. That hasn't changed much. And the percentage of people that have died, that have been diagnosed from COVID, still remains basically at 3%. Now, the deaths, total deaths right now so far from COVID, it's 157,556 people have died. That's another 1,255 people since yesterday. And we've been having a string of days where 1,000 plus people die every day. That's a staggering number from one sole source, which is basically COVID. Now, I don't care if you want to say that the numbers are baked or inflated or whatever, okay? There's 1,000 people dying a day from this. That's a real big deal. It hasn't let up for a little while now, and I don't see that changing anytime soon either. Now, California has the number one spot with the highest number of cases right now at 527,000 cases. They had another 6,000 cases since yesterday. Their deaths right now are at 9,708. They had another 200 people in California die overnight. Okay. Florida's got the number 2 spot. Okay, they're not having a good time down there. Texas is at number 3. New York is at number 4. They have a couple of good days right now. Georgia's at number 5. Illinois is at number 6. New Jersey is number 7. Arizona's still not having a good time out there. They're number 8. North Carolina is at number 9. And Louisiana has moved up to number 10 this past weekend. Interesting things are happening down south, and we're going to get to those in just a couple minutes. But right now, Florida became the second state Wednesday to surpass the 500,000 mark cases with COVID. The only other state that has more cases than Florida is California. Now, California right now has 526,000 COVID cases. Okay, Florida reported 5,495 new cases just on Wednesday, bringing its total to 502,000, almost 503. Now, the Florida Department of Health also reported an additional 225 deaths on Wednesday. More than 28,000 residents have been hospitalized with COVID in the state since the pandemic actually began. The city with the largest number of problems in the state right now is Miami, followed by Orlando, Jacksonville, Tampa, and Hialeah. Texas is currently the third highest number with over 466,000 cases. New York was once the epicenter. It was an absolute disaster in New York. Okay, brought people to tears. Okay, right now, they still have more than 418,000 cases, but in the last 3 days in a row, they've had 0 deaths from the virus. That was on Wednesday. Now, what's new is Mississippi. Mississippi is making the news, and not in a good way. Okay, the state has a relatively low population, and it's the 5th highest recorded case count per 100,000 people, only behind Louisiana, Arizona, Florida, and New York. It's also the nation's highest test positivity rate, with a weekly average of 25.8% as of Wednesday. That's an astounding positivity test. Astounding number. Okay, COVID is just ripping right through that state right now. Now, even that, okay, the state's still encouraging schools to reopen for in-person learning. And the caveat is that, you should wear a mask and follow guidelines from the CDC. Okay. Um, but right now, they got hit pretty hard. Now, the governor there, okay, in Mississippi, announced new measures requiring face coverings for all public gatherings and retail settings for at least the next 2 weeks. So he's requiring them, but it's just for 2 weeks. He's sort of out on the ledge, but not that much. Okay. Also, all the adults and kids in schools must wear masks unless there is a medical reason not to. The daily numbers have dipped in recent days, but the death rates have climbed from an average roughly of 10 per day in early June to right now over 30 per day. Mississippi's 1,753 deaths right now rank it among the 10th among the U.S. highest deaths per 100,000. Okay. Hospitals in the state's largest city, Jackson, are filling up. Health experts say it makes a daunting combination in Mississippi. Okay. One of the poorest and unhealthy states in the country to begin with. Okay, and then you put COVID on top of that. Okay, and they've got some serious problems there. The state right now is tied for the highest in self-reported adult obesity, and the highest, the third highest in death rates for hypertension and heart disease, respectively, according to the CDC. Now, health officials have been having certain other illnesses such as diabetes and high blood pressure, heart disease, and increased risk for more severe COVID cases. I mean, as you get these accompanying things, the chance of having COVID fatalities is really, really high. Okay, the high positivity rate is also exceptionally concerning because it mirrors, the health disparities that you already have in the state. Okay, now taking something like COVID-19, compounding it with all the other health problems that you have in the state, and that makes it really, really amazingly devastating. Okay, for us to get where we are right now, I think that part of that reflects the rural nature of the state. But now we're seeing community spread in all corners of the state, according to our most recent rural areas. And that's from local doctors there. Daily hospitalizations have risen from about 700 at any given time in mid-June to more than 1,100 right now. Mississippi ranks near the bottom for physicians per capita. A doctor there said battling coronavirus is very taxing, it's exhausting, and there's no relief in sight. I worry about the fatigue and weariness of our healthcare workers in the state of Mississippi. As for schools, the governor is really encouraging them to open for in-person learning if local officials feel they can, with guidance and the caveats including, every family have the option for remote learning. Okay. On Tuesday, he said that in 8 counties with high case counts for schools 7 through 12, they must delay their openings at least until August 17th. He cited studies showing that older children may spread the disease more rapidly than younger ones. Okay. Now, the governor there also cited the CDC guidelines that pushed hard to reopen the schools, arguing that harm of closing the schools was potentially harming the kids developmentally. And it might outweigh the harm for opening the schools, even though the virus is going to spread. Well, the CDC also said in their guidance that there's this big caution there. If the community had substantial virus transmission, officials should really consider keeping the schools closed. And that was according to the CDC director, Robert Redfield. Later, he said, including counties with positivity rates higher than 5%. Okay. So if you're higher than 5%, you should be opening your schools. Okay, where's Mississippi right now? 28%. Okay. They shouldn't be open anything. Okay. They're not going to have a good time down there by a lot. Okay. Nice enough state, they're laid back, a little crazy with their health situation. Again, it's diet related for the most part, but it's a happy state. But the health situation, the way they eat, is driving things off the wall right now. They've got a lot of underlying conditions, and you throw COVID on top of that, they're not having a good time, and they're not about to have a good time for a while right now. Now, the White House Coronavirus Task Force Director, Dr. Deborah Birx, said that positivity rate test is the statistic that she watches the closest because it's the most sensitive indicator of how the coronavirus situation is actually unfolding at any particular time and place. Now, Dr. Payton, at Jackson State University professor, also warned that because many in the state are underprivileged, a significant portion of Mississippi's populace may be vulnerable to the worst of COVID. Okay. About 19.8% of the state's population lived in poverty as of 2018, according to the U.S. government census. Now, how are you going to tell somebody who lives way up in the Delta to have hand sanitizer and take other precautions when they can't afford it? Okay. You often have several generations of families living in one house. Okay. It's very difficult to socially distance when you have several people in just one home. And she said it's a rough game. Okay. Now, what are you going to do about that stuff? Those things are there. Those conditions exist. They're not changing. So how do you adapt with that stuff when COVID's doing what it's doing right now? Okay. I don't see good things happening in Mississippi. I really don't. Now, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top expert on infectious disease, on Wednesday, okay, he was out and he said unequivocally that the U.S. coronavirus outbreak is the worst in the world. We're not quite 5% of the world's population, yet we represent 20 to 25% of the world's infections. I mean that it has to be the worst. Is it not the worst? According to asked Dr. Sanjay Gupta, okay, during an interview. Okay, she was interviewing Fauci. She's from CNN, and she said, "Is it not the worst?" And he said, "Yeah, it's quantitatively. If you look at it, it is." Okay. I mean, the numbers don't lie. That's what Fauci said. His words directly undercut the misleading and rosy picture, okay, that President Donald Trump really sought to paint around the coronavirus outbreak from when this thing got started, which is part of the reason why they're having so many problems right now and the failures to actually respond in any meaningful way. Every country has suffered, okay? We in the United States have suffered as much or worse than anyone else, Fauci said. I mean, when you look at the numbers of infections and the number of deaths, okay, it's really quite concerning. And any demographic group that's not seriously trying to get the end game of this by suppressing this, okay, it will continue to smolder and smolder and smolder, is what Fauci said. Now, as of Wednesday, there are 4.7 million cases of COVID in the U.S., nearly 158,000 deaths, according to Johns Hopkins at the time. Now, no other country in the world has higher numbers. Fauci's comments on Wednesday stood in stark contrast to Trump's recent rhetoric on the U.S. outbreak. Trump has downplayed the impact of COVID in the U.S. from the start, okay? Even with public health experts saying the continued outbreak is spiraling out of control across the country. But the president's really not changing his course. He said in comments on Fox and Friends on Wednesday, Trump falsely said that COVID-19 was spreading in a relatively small portion of the country. Well, the numbers show it's blowing across this place unbelievably at an alarming rate. Okay? And if you're in the front lines of healthcare, like an ER doc or an ICU nurse or respiratory therapist, okay, you get firsthand knowledge of what's going on. You know what's real and what's not. And that really brings me to the question for today. With all this going on, can you still retire? But before we get there, okay, what's all this stuff actually mean to you? If you don't believe it's real, it's just a matter of time before the facts come up and undeniably smack you in the face and bring you back to reality. I mean, if you have COVID or you know someone who has it, you know this is real stuff. Okay? If you don't have COVID, that's great. Reduce your chances of getting it by maintaining your social distancing whenever you can and wear a mask. You have to continue with your life as it is because this is the new norm. Okay, this is going to be with us for a while. None of this changes, however, your basic long-term goals. The primary one for people that are 50 plus is, can you still retire? Will you be able to retire at some point in time with a reasonable lifestyle? Now, without a doubt, the first half of the year is really throwing a wrench into the works for the situation that most people were totally unprepared for even before this all happened. If you're 50 plus and you've already lived half your life, and you lived through a number of situations over time, this is truly one of the more inconvenient ones. Okay, probably more so than other things that you've had to live through. However, you did actually live through them, and you lived through this one too. How well you lived through it, okay, and how well you come out on the other side, that's pretty much dependent on where you are right now on two things. Two things. How you got started and your attitudes towards things as you experience them. Right now, if you had some savings to start off before this all got started, you had some savings off to the side, and you had a business or a job that wasn't shut down completely, then there's a good chance that you'll do okay. You'll still need to regroup and do some new things, but if you do, okay, you've got the first half of this equation under control. The second half is the attitude situation and your responses to what's happened right now and what continues to develop. Now, if you're a centered person, okay, you understand and accept that there's certain realities of the situation, even though they've been thrust upon you in no way you really wanted. But no matter where you were, okay, no matter where you started, you've accepted the reality of the numbers and the facts and the sciences that chances are you'll do fine. If you have both of those basic things covered, then you only need a new plan and a willingness and a tenacity to actually act on the plan every day until its completion. Now, I'm Dr. Fred Rouse, the Real Money Doctor. My only goal is to help you get, protect, and enjoy your money, your life, and your retirement. It took me 10 years and well over $350,000 to develop a plan that I call short window retirement planning. It's specifically designed for unique situations of people that are 50 and older and gives them the best chance to save their retirement. If you'd like to see what I've come up with, to see if it might work for you, go to my site, drrousenow.com, to see if I can help. If I can help you get the ultimate secure retirement that you've always dreamed of and get it in just the next 3 to 5 years. Now, for now, I appreciate spending some time with you. I appreciate, you'll spend some time with me. I look forward to seeing some more of you tomorrow around 7 o'clock. Thank you.